Hey guys, gonna try to upload a couple shorts today, covering a few topics I haven't gotten to in the last few weeks. Been busy with work, or trying to find work through Uber because it's been so slow. Doing plumbing. Um, yeah, a lot's been going on. It is no King's Day. I plan on going to a protest later, despite the rain. Um, I try not to go to protests where there's already going to be numbers there. Like the Love Park protest in Philly, I don't need to be there. There's going to be people there. The main goal is to have bodies and a loud voice. Um, I'm going to go one to one around me in a more conservative conservative-ish area. Um, yeah, there's been a lot going on though. Where to start? No tax on tips and no overtime tax seems to be one of those things he said he was going to do, and they're just not doing it. Um, the only argument I've seen on uh, the Medicaid, the big beautiful bill involving cutting Medicaid and food stamps, among other things, cutting taxes for corporations. The only argument I'm seeing coming from Republicans is that it doesn't cut enough. Yes, that's where we're at with this, with that party. That's just, I mean, I think I saw it has 67% disapproval. And again, we're talking like anywhere between like 8 to 13 million people losing their health care through Medicaid. Now I've seen a couple um excuses from Republican elected officials in Congress and the Senate saying, "Oh no, it's just means testing. It's a work requirement." That's not true. No, we're making sure undocumented immigrants can't get Medicaid. The only way undocumented immigrants technically get Medicaid is when they go to the emergency room, because Medicaid reimburses hospitals for emergency room services. That's why you and I can go there and we don't have to pay right then. We eventually get billed, but we don't have to pay right then. You get service, you get help without going, all right, pay us first. Um, there's just been a ton of excuses from them, and none of it makes any sense. I mean, this ties into everything they've done in the last few months, though. They tried to freeze people's Social Security payments without any proof of it being fraudulent. Um, and among Medicare and Medicaid and food stamps and Social Security, at least Social Security, it's like less than 1% fraud rate. From what I've seen, it's pretty much the same thing with most social programs. It's not that high. So you can't say you're going to kick off 10 million people from their health care and excuse it. It's just, saying it's fraud. It just doesn't make sense. Um, Staying on the topic of kind of like, legislation and stuff like that in this video. Um, yeah, Musk and Trump crashed out so hard. They kicked him out as head of Doge, obviously. I mean, we had inspector generals doing this job anyway. We do not need a Department of Government Efficiency, and it definitely doesn't need to be ran by the richest man in the world who gave more than $250 million to Trump in this last election, and has government contracts that he wasn't going to touch. Two things they did not touch. I mean, there's several things that they should have, but the military budget, which they're planning on increasing, and contracts to Musk. So, I mean, can you really call yourself a fiscal conservative when you're nitpicking with crap like that? Like you cannot be biased on that and excuse it. Um, One thing I don't like is, even if it helped Tesla and Musk, um, trying to renege and revoke the solar panel rebates for consumers. I mean, that directly hurts Americans. We were saving, not all of us, but the people who had the money to get solar power in the first place were going to save money in the long run, and the government was going to give them money to do so. It was a huge economic stimulator, and yeah, just another example of Republicans and Trump really fucking over um, the working class and families. I am shocked to see how quickly it escalated and became this huge situation between Trump and Musk, though. Um, like the legislation and all that, the spending cuts and all that aside, all that illegal crap they were doing. I did not expect Musk to come out and say, "Hey, Trump's in the Epstein files." We all knew that, though. I mean, if you are a Trump supporter and you didn't know that, or you're in denial about that, I don't see your thought process. I don't understand that. Epstein says on audio tapes countless times that him and Trump were best friends for years. They're on video together. Trump acknowledged that he knew Epstein likes women much younger. He said he likes girls much younger. They used to hang out in Mar-a-Lago all the time. I don't think we'll ever get the Epstein files. Maybe under a Democratic president who isn't accepting corporate money and a younger person who isn't a part of those groups. Not going to say AOC, but she's the youngest person that could potentially run. I do think eventually we'll get a little more information on it. That's really all I have to say on that topic, though, because it's just, we all fucking know. We knew he was a pedophile. We knew he was a sexual offender. The man was just found liable, I think it was last year, for sexual assault. He lied under oath, too, saying, "I don't know that woman," and it was very clear he knew that woman. His own family members have accused him of sexually assaulting them. His niece, I believe it was, Mary Trump. When it comes down to it, everything he's doing right now in LA shows it was never about law and order. He's violating people's First Amendment rights because they're protesting that he's violating people's Fifth Amendment rights. They're detaining and, I'm going to say abducting because there's no due process. They're abducting and sending people out of the country without due process. In El Salvador, in that concentration camp, that's exactly what it is when you lock up people indefinitely without charging them and convicting them. I believe it was 20% of the Venezuelans they sent there were legal, documented immigrants without any criminal background. You can't make this shit up. It's a huge violation of the Fifth Amendment, and we're going to find out that, I mean, we've already found out he's not pro-First Amendment, but we're going to find out very quickly, if this escalates, that Republicans who, stomp that they're in favor of the Second Amendment to overthrow an authoritarian or tyrannical government don't really give a fuck. They just don't care. It's about them, not us. They're fake treats, as I call them. Otherwise, they'd be out there with the veterans who are getting detained at the moment. There's veterans being detained in LA for protesting. I believe it was the Marines they deployed to Los Angeles yesterday or the day before, arrested a black veteran. That is, I believe, not the first time in our history our military has done that on American soil, but it's the first time in modern history. And we really shouldn't forget that last year, Kristi Noem, however you say her name, she said to Biden, "You cannot deploy the National Guard without a governor's consent, without their approval." Obviously, it just got shot down. Trump can't send the National Guard. A judge just ruled he did so illegally. I believe you have to go to Congress and get their approval if you don't have the governor's consent. And for people who aren't caught up on history, we've been through this before when you send in the National Guard to peaceful protests, and the LAPD did call it peaceful protests until federal agents started showing up. I believe it was the Kent State shooting. Yeah, the National Guard shot protesters who were not doing anything wrong. So you do not have to be rioting. You do not have to be vandalizing and being violent to get shot by federal forces or federalized national troops. I don't see this ending well unless enough Republicans start basically siding against Trump on this, seeing what's going on. Unless we have direct civil disobedience like we saw in the civil rights movement, where it's just like people literally laying on sidewalks, sit-ins, and then, you know, police release the hounds and, you know, they get bit up. I'm not saying I hope protesters get hurt, but it would definitely be an eye-opener to a lot of conservatives who aren't brainwashed and they just see as Trump as the lesser of two evils for some fucking reason. I do see these protests helping, though. It's shedding light on what's actually going on in this country. That, I mean, we're here. This is not, you know, oh, this could be a slippery slope and we could end up like, you know, Nazi Germany or Italy. It's like, no, we are here. They're violating people's First Amendment rights, Fifth Amendment rights. They're cutting social programs. They're now defending Israel bombing Iran for no fucking reason. As if we didn't think that was going to happen, though. I mean, they've been gesturing in that way for decades that they wanted to do this to Iran. And make damn sure that you keep in mind Netanyahu would not have gone ahead and bombed Iran unless he had Trump on his side. We are arming them. Not at the moment, but that's how they get their weapons. They're not going to do that without our approval. That's why they didn't do it under Biden. I'm not calling him a saint. He's still armed to genocide. He's still armed to ethnic cleansing. He's still armed to war that we should not have been involved in at all. But it's very obvious. Netanyahu needed Trump's approval to do this. I don't see this ending well. In Tel Aviv, there are bunkers where the leaders of government and military hide, and it is in civilian territory. It is in residential neighborhoods or surrounded by it, at least. I saw a video of Iran retaliating where I believe they shot missiles at the Israeli Ministry of Defense in Tel Aviv. I shed no tears. I shed no tears for Israel, honestly. I believe I saw numbers that said like anywhere from like 70 to 85% of their country are, I mean, they see Palestinian children as, you know, terrorists, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically it. They don't have remorse or empathy for these children, for these people in general. And Iran wasn't going to do anything to Israel. Yeah, they're allies with Hezbollah, they're allies with Hamas, but that's not it's not a global thing. They don't want to take over Israel. That's never been the case. Iran, I mean. Hamas clearly wants to, but I mean, can you blame them? Israel took their land in 1948. When people say this started on October 7th, it's pretty hard to really, you know, defend that when Hamas didn't just, you know, appear on October 7th. Netanyahu even said, after years of not negotiating or, you know, allowing negotiations to break down out of stubbornness with the Palestinian Liberation Organization, not a terrorist group, Hamas came into power, and Netanyahu even said it himself. I prefer this. This will undermine their sovereignty. This will undermine their legitimacy, and it'll only help Israel. And now we're in the end game of, oh, we just got to get rid of Hamas. That's their mindset. And it's like, you don't get rid of Hamas by murdering civilians and children. That only creates more extremists. You know how we fucking know? We did this in Afghanistan. We did this in Iraq. We did this in Syria and Libya. It's been going on in Palestine since 1948. And it's very clearly not just about Hamas, because since Israel launched an attack at Iran, they have now started to take more parts of West Bank. There is no Hamas in West Bank. That's pretty much it on this topic, on that, and the legislation that they're trying to pass that's going to hurt Americans. I'll go more into detail with that this week on the big beautiful bill. Like I said, today's, you know, No King's Day. I firmly believe in protesting. So if you can get out there, definitely get out there, even if it's just for a little bit. Have a good day.